what I'm going to do is this integrated deployment. And I'm really pleased to have someone joining me on stage. And she is actually based in the United States. So Zehra, if you can turn yourself on. Good morning.
Morning. How are you?
Hey, I'm really glad you could be with me. And you've got to tell everybody where you are.
So I'm in Austin, Texas. So
Okay.
yeah, where it's like bright and sunny today.
Okay.
So
And it just got dark here. So I'm really jealous. What Zehra and I are going to do is we're going to dive into this a little bit. But first, I'd like to give you just a little bit of background because, Zehra, forgive me, but we've got a lot of non-Americans on the call and on the video, and I want to position something for them. Okay, everybody who's not American, imagine this. In America, there are, of course, big mega banks, but there's also thousands of little regional banks. These banks were started by families, by companies, by co-ops, by lots of different people. And it's something that makes America very unique in that there's these thousands of regional banks. Well, the challenge is, how do the regional banks service their customers today? Because as you can imagine, if you're a mega bank, you can do a lot of things. But if you're a regional, maybe not so much. And that's where it comes in to Kasasa. And that's why I'm so pleased to have Zehra Hussein, who's the Director of Research and Insight at Kasasa. And Zehra, tell us a little bit about Kasasa.
Phil, thank you for having me, first of all. So Kasasa is a provider of technology financial products, and we work with a network of small community financial institutions um, to provide them with products and services that would attract customers to their institutions. Um, the idea is that we do believe that that consumers need to find first. So research shows that consumers are looking for new and innovative products and services, and they they do want to bank locally, but they won't do it because they think that the products and services that they're looking for will not, like, the local institutions do not have the resources to provide those products and services. So at Kasasa, our goal is to give the consumers the reason to believe that these local institutions can also provide them with comparable products and services.
To be honest, that is really cool. I've been following you guys for many years, and I think it's fantastic. So you're basically making sure the little guys can compete with the big guys, at least from the perspective of the consumer. Fantastic.
Yeah, so we provide them with comprehensive retail strategy, branded consumer products, and data-driven marketing solutions. So all of these things together help them compete with those mega banks. And um, the company, we've been in business since 2003. And to give you an idea of scale, today we have a network of 749 financial institutions that we work with across the United States. Um, we monitor around 3.5 million SASA powered accounts. Uh, these accounts hold 19 billion in deposits and generate 76 million in monthly point of sale transactions. Our accounts pay out around 17 million per month in interest rewards. We do monitor 27 million consumer accounts, and then also our accounts generate 43 million in non-interest income um, per month. So you
Now,
can see the
yeah,
volume here.
what's interesting for me is even as an American, if you're with a small regional bank, it could well be that a lot of the services you're getting from your bank are coming from Kasasa. I mean, 76 million transactions. That's a lot.
Yeah, that's 3.5 million accounts that we generate, but we also monitor all their consumer accounts, which is the 27 million accounts. So if you look at the entire portfolio, it's basically way more than 76 million. So as you can imagine, the data has become really big. So the company has invested heavily in technology and data infrastructure over the years. And as a data leader, our goal is to take all the information that we're getting from our partners and put them in action. So this is basically the mission statement of my team at Kasasa. We want to innovate badass data solutions, empowering our teams, clients, and consumers, while partnering with our business owners to provide insightful analysis supporting their decisions. Lots of words, but in short, we want to take data and put that into action and support decisions, basically. So we started our machine learning journey at Kasasa around 2 years ago. 2 years ago, it was pretty daunting. There was a lot of unknown, but we kind of jumped into it. And 2 years later, I know that there were like kind of three components that are very important to your success, right? The first is the leadership team, and I report directly into the CTO, and he has vested interest in our success. He constantly works with me to remove blockers and supports us in every initiative. So I've been lucky there. The second key is like the front and center is the data science team that I have. My team, on my team, I don't just have like smart individuals, but they're also very brave and creative. We are constantly questioning like the status quo, and we're saying, okay, is there a better way to do this? Is there a newer way to look at this problem, right? And so that's why I call them brave. And then last but not the least, is the tools. Like we really need to, the team is smart and they have the skills, but now you need to give them the tools so that they can deliver results, right? And so that's where when we started our machine learning journey, we started working with DataRobot. And I mean, it's a pretty awesome tool that they have, and they are very good on the model development side. So basically, the idea is that you really need to know nothing about feature engineering, model development, training, testing. All you need to have is data, maybe in a spreadsheet or a CSV, and you basically put it in their tool, and you there's like this big red button that they have on their black screen, and you just push it, and what you get is like a list of models, right? All of these models with their different accuracy scores, and they are also very good in giving you insights into the model. So we had a lot of fun playing with the tool and creating a lot of models, and putting our findings in presentations and giving it out. But when it came time for model deployment, that's where we kind of hit a wall, because there were all these steps that needed to be taken to put those models that we've created into production. The big issue with that is that, okay, who owns the whole pipeline end to end? And how would our downstream engineering team embed our solution in their, within the software, right? And so the next slide talks about just all the steps that you need to take. There's all of this data prep and architecting that needs to happen before the model gets accessed. And then the model, and then the data hits the model. So all of the feature engineering that you've done has to be applied to the data when it's scored also. The model gets, so then you access the model, the prediction results come out. Now there's all the post-processing that needs to happen before the model results can be finally consumed by the downstream engineering team. So the point was like, who owns all of this end-to-end like machine learning pipeline, right? And then what happens when you have to retrain the model? And what if you have to add a couple of features, or if you have to change something there, like, is it gonna break my whole pipeline, right? So you can see like there were lots of challenges that we were facing at the time. And so last year I was here at Knime Summit, evaluating Knime Server as a tool, potential tool that maybe we could use. I was here with my whole entire team, and we did the whole week of Knime Summit. And then after that, I remember we went down to a restaurant, we were having our dinner, and then, all of us just felt that, this is the tool that will give us the flexibility that we needed, and we can really scale ourselves with this tool. And so I would say around mid-January, we put Knime Server in production. And since then, we have been able to work on 4 projects and put them end-to-end in production. These are the 4 projects that we've worked on. I can give you a little brief on what these are, right?
Yes, please. I think it's interesting.
So the first one is the recommender system for NII products. this year, this was a big initiative for our company. We came up with a product suite of 9 insurance products. And basically the objective of this project was to score each consumer based on their propensity to buy a particular product, and then recommend a product for that consumer. With this model, we've had tremendous success. The click-through rate and the conversion rate on our marketing campaigns have been pretty amazing. The stakeholders are thrilled with the results, and next year we plan to expand this recommender system to not just NII products, but all products that we offer. So that would be pretty cool. The next one is the transaction classification project. The objective of this project was to help our technical engineering team with the conversion as they were migrating our clients from old legacy platform to the new platform. And this project, what it does is basically looks at all the descriptions of the transactions that are coming from different core vendors of our clients, and then we classify the transactions into these 20 buckets. What it does is it avoids all the manual work that our technical engineer was doing, and now it automatically tells them, okay, this transaction code is basically a point of sale transaction. We've had tremendous success with this one as well. Our technical engineers, they had a goal of converting 100% of our clients to the new platform this year, and I think as of now they've already reached their goal. So that was pretty successful. The next one that we worked on was rewards validation. At the end of every cycle, what we do is we calculate rewards for all our consumer accounts, the 3.5 million consumer accounts that we power. And so this model basically flags errors in the input files. And if there are some errors that we flag, it signals the technical engineering team to go and like redo the data files and get new files. And then the last one is the anomaly detection model. This is a part of our big data quality initiative for the year. The idea here is to gate all the bad data from the course so that they don't enter our ecosystem, and all the downstream applications, they don't consume this bad data. And so those are the 4 things we've worked on so far, and there's many more to come this year and next year, and I'm super, super excited.
What's interesting for me is that you focused on a couple of them are, you could call classic, the recommender system. But there's a couple of applications here which I really think are quite clever, because you spent a lot of time using machine learning to basically automate quality control. So very, very early in the process, all those things about transactions and everything, that's quite clever. And it's impressive you've done it, just basically since early this year. So it's not as if you have, 20 years of Knime experience to do this. My compliments.
Thank you. Also, I only also have a very small team, so we're only like 4 people on my team right now. And so we were able to do all of this because, we did have the right tools in place. And here's like the machine learning project lifecycle. We are right now using Knime for model development and deployment, and also reporting when it comes to just getting insight into how the model is performing. And now I'll walk you guys through like actual modeling and scoring workflow for the rewards validation model that we just recently worked on, and I just talked about it. So what you see here is on the top there is the modeling workflow, and then the bottom there's a scoring workflow.
Okay, Zehra, we should tell people we're going to have a test on this. Everybody's going to be tested on the node settings. No, absolutely not. But I thought it was really important to show everybody something real. These are real workflows. So bear with us. I promised a deep dive, so bear with us, because it's worth walking through and just picking up some of the things they're doing in production at the moment. Okay, back over to you.
All right. I know. I mean, we are going to get a little bit into the weeds, but I guess it's important to, demonstrate like what we're doing. So the idea of this project was to basically, so we have 20 different transaction type, and we want to predict the volume of these transactions on a given cycle for a financial institution. So we want to do that for 749 institutions that we have. For the next cycle, we want to know how many point of sale, how many check transactions is this institution going to have next month. So that's kind of the idea. The complexity here is that we have 20 different transaction types that we wanted to predict. Now, one idea, like my idea would be okay, let's create 20 different models, 20 different modeling workflows, and 20 different scoring workflows, and go from there, right? But then Peter on my team, who's pretty smart, came up with like this one idea. So what you see here is very simplified workflow. That's just with just a simple, like you just read the data. So what you're doing in the blue box is you're reading all the data. The yellow box selects the different transaction types, and then you chunk through, or you loop through all the different transaction types, and then create models in just one workflow. So with using just one workflow. So a lot is happening in the gray node over here where it says transaction type modeling. We are basically selecting a model, tuning a model, writing a model, all of that stuff is going on in that gray node here. And we were able to do that with Knime just because, the tool is so flexible. Whatever problems, you just have to get a little bit creative with how you're approaching something, and then there's the possibilities are like unlimited with what you can do.
Yeah, I have to add here, I have to give my hats off to Peter. He did something here. Remember, this is a deep dive, so we can say things like this. He did something here that I haven't seen very often. I would have run it through a loop and gone, yeah, loop. But he said, hang on, each one of those parameter tuning models takes a long time. We have Knime server. Why don't I write it in such a way that I parallel the entire thing? I slam it up on the server. That's what that little loop is doing there. And he runs 18, 20 of them, in parallel, all at the same time. Each one's working, happens very quickly, efficiently. He pulls all the optimized models back together and saves them at the end. Lovely, lovely, lovely.
So the runtime on these, like you said, is not on this workflow is not very long, and in just a matter of a few minutes, we generate those 20 models that we needed to predict the transaction types out, right? And you can see if I had like another tool, it would take me a lot of time to do a different model for every different transaction type. And then at the bottom is the scoring workflow. So once you have the models, what we're doing is we're reading the data in for a particular FI. We're doing all the pre-processing that we've done in our modeling workflow. And then we score against the model. After we score against the model, so the green box here is actually is trying to find the right model for the right transaction type. So if it's a check transaction, we want to make sure that it goes to the check model and gets the prediction. And then the brown box here, score and join. So we score all the different transactions. And then after that, we do some post-processing and write out our output files into S3 for our downstream applications to consume. So it's pretty simple.
Yeah, but even looking at this, even without being able to read all the details of the code, I can already see it's like Michael Berthold was talking about earlier. Stuff from the top is being copied down below, isn't it? So this maintaining two workflows thing.
Yeah, so all of that yellow box that you see up at the top, you'll see the same kind of nodes are in the yellow and green down at the bottom as well, because all of the data processing that we did before we created the model has to be done in your deployment workflow as well, because if you don't do that, it's not going to work in production because the model needs all the input data to be in the same format. So all of your feature engineering has to be applied at the time of scoring as well.
Okay, so what did we do? I had the chance, I worked with Corey from Knime out of the Austin office, and Corey and I looked over the shoulder of Zehra and Peter, her teammate, and we took a look at this, and we said, okay, how do we as a team go about transforming this into an integrated deployment. And to do this, if everybody will forgive me, we're going to simplify it down. Every element that we in the previous one is there, so it's the exact same thing. But here is something very, very simple. We know that there's a data cleansing and capturing part at the beginning. We know there's a loop where we're coming up with a perfect model and we're having to score, and we want.
So we were at, so I was just talking about the modeling part, and where we were having a challenge was that we could only use one type of model with that simplified workflow. Because if we try to use several different types of model, we will also have to make sure that our scoring workflow had the corresponding scorer. For example, if you're using an XGBoost predictor, you need to have an XGBoost scorer. Instead, and if you're using gradient boosted learner, you also need the same kind of scorer at the bottom. And so like we ended up using gradient boosted learner, but it wasn't working out really well for all the different transaction types. But we kind of forced ourselves into using that modeling technique because we couldn't afford the complexity, because in terms of maintenance, that would be too much.
And that's the nice thing about this, isn't it? It's very easy to add the bits in because we've just added it in the capture.
Yep. And so do you want to walk through what you did with that? No?
Well, no, basically just what you said. It was the fact that we basically captured each of your pieces. And then the first thing we did was we worked with you to actually add an extra method because that was important to you. And at the end, you'll notice the thing we're doing differently is we're not saving the model, we're actually saving the best workflow. So it's the model and the predictor, just as you said. Now at the bottom, there's just a little tiny piece because we know in production we wanted to loop through. This is the concept of continuous deployment. So we were creating the extra piece we needed, and at the end we write it out, and there we go. So this is now the whole thing that you showed, exactly the same. We've added some things in already. Anytime we change something at the top, it automatically creates the production workflow at the bottom. And the nice thing is that production workflow is just containerized. So you can give it to your production folks. They only have to know how to call it and how to receive the code. Everything that happens between is done automatically. And that's the concept of integrated deployment. So what was your first thought when you saw this?
So to be honest, I mean, it actually shrinks our development time by a lot, because what we do right now is that we actually have like this one big body of work, which is model development. And then after that, we have a body of work that's model deployment. And what this does is that we'll just basically don't have to, we get rid of that whole body of work, right, of model deployment. And as long as we capture the right nodes in the workflow, the deployment workflow will just automatically get generated. The other cool thing about it is, like I said, it gives me flexibility in trying out different models and fix the best model from whatever models that I have in there. So that would be pretty cool. That's not that was not an option in our current scoring workflow that you just saw, because it just complicated everything. And then last, even I want to retrain this thing, like what do? I just run it, use new data and run the same workflow, and everything else is going to get updated. So it is super cool. Retraining right now for us is like a nightmare because we're thinking about all the things that we'll have to do on the modeling side, and then all the changes that we will have to make on the deployment side, and then we'll have to push all of that stuff in production. So this is, it really streamlines a lot of things that, a lot of steps that we have to take to put a model in production.
This was very, very cool, I have to say. I mean, when we came up with this idea around integrated deployment, adding these capture nodes, I think that's kind of sort of what we had in mind. But if you build that, right, you don't really use it in anger, as Phil always says. And seeing you use that for a real application, extremely cool. Very, very nice. So I'm very much looking forward to the sequel, maybe in a year from now, maybe live in Austin, when we are actually allowed to travel again. That would be awesome to have you on stage and talk about how some of those things are working in production continuously. Very nice.
That
awesome.
would be super. I look forward to it. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you very much. Just a second, Greg, are there any questions from the audience? I think that Phil was supposed to ask that.
Yeah, so there is one quick one. I have a little bit of context around maybe what's going on with Phil. There is a problem with Zoom on the back end, and some of us keep getting kicked out of the audio. So that may be what the problem there is.
Okay.
Anyway, so the question for Zehra is, there are a couple of detailed questions that came up on the from on the chat system. I don't understand the question, so I'll just ask it and maybe you understand. The first one is XA in transaction type supported as a classification type or validated? Is that question?
Can you repeat that for me a second?
Is XA a supported transaction type?
XA.
Okay, good. I'll move on to something else.
I have no idea what XA is. So I'll tell you the examples of our transaction types. We have check, point of sale signature, and then point of sale PIN transactions. We have ATM refunds, ATM transactions, tunes transactions. Those are kind of some of the examples of the different transaction types that we are classifying in our classification models.
Okay, thanks. And then there's one more, which is kind of a different type of question, which is how difficult it was for the team to get into the concept of integrated deployment, to get their brain around it and then really get into it.
I don't think it was difficult for them at all, actually, because all you have to do is put those purple capture nodes in your workflow for all the steps that you want captured. I think the only thing when we initially started looking into it was like some of us felt like, what actually is the benefit from doing this? But then once we put that in work, it was like, oh, this is super easy and super simple also for us to for all of us to implement. So I don't think it's difficult at all. It just takes a bit of engineering that you have to do.
I love that, a bit of engineering. Awesome. Thank you very much, Zehra. Sorry for the technical hiccup. I think we are all doing this kind of sort of for the first time, so I expected all sorts of disasters to strike. This is variation X that we didn't plan, but I think it worked out okay. Thanks a lot. And as I said, hopefully we'll meet in person in Austin next year and hear more about this.
Looking forward to it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.